Ambassador Zekthar of the Viridian Consortium had witnessed first contact with 17 different species across 3 galactic sectors. Each encounter followed the same predictable pattern: cautious communication, cultural exchange, trade negotiations, and eventual integration into the galactic community. The humans, however, had already shattered every protocol before their ship even docked. The warning had come from the Outer Rim stations first, fragmented reports of a vessel unlike anything in the database. Not the sleek bioships of the Meridians, nor the crystalline constructs of the Silicon Collective. This craft was crude, angular, built from refined metals and chemical propulsion, primitive by galactic standards, yet it had somehow crossed the void between star systems. Impossible, the station commander had muttered. No species achieves interstellar travel without first mastering bioneural interfaces or quantum consciousness transfer. But impossible or not, the human ship Fenrir now hung in space outside Nexus Station, requesting permission to dock. Zekthar straightened his ceremonial robes as he prepared for what would undoubtedly be another routine first contact. The translation matrix had already decoded their basic language, a harsh, angular thing called English, and preliminary scans showed they were carbon-based bipeds. Standard procedure. The airlock hissed open, and Zekthar's confidence evaporated. The human stepped through first, tall, broad-shouldered, with strange fur only on the top of its head and face. But it wasn't alone. Beside it padded a 4-legged creature, easily half the human's height, with pointed ears, yellow eyes, and a coat of thick gray fur. The creature's presence sent every instinct in Zekthar's ancient genetic memory screaming. Predator. The assembled delegation of various species took an involuntary step backward. The Therians, themselves descended from pack hunters, actually whimpered. The crystalline architects began cycling through defensive frequency patterns. "Greetings," the human said, seemingly oblivious to the terror radiating from the welcoming committee. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of Earth. This is my companion Fenris." The creature, Fenris, sat obediently beside the human, tongue lolling out in what the translator suggested was contentment. But those eyes tracked every movement with predatory intelligence. "Captain Chen," Zekthar managed, his voice barely steady. "Your companion, it is a weapon?" The human's face contorted in what the database identified as amusement. "Fenris? No, he's my dog. My friend." The word dog had no translation. The concept it represented was even more alien. "You befriended a predator?" The question came from Dr. Yilan of the Pacifist Coalition, her tentacles quivering with disbelief. "Befriended?" The human, Sarah, laughed, another incomprehensible sound. "Humans and dogs have been partners for over 15,000 years. We evolved together. We hunt together, live together, fight together." She reached down and scratched behind Fenris's ears. The predator leaned into the touch, eyes closing in apparent bliss. The assembled dignitaries watched in stunned silence as the apex predator submitted to the human's affection. "This is impossible," whispered Commander Voss of the Stellar Hegemony. "No species forms symbiotic bonds with apex predators. It violates every principle of evolutionary survival." Sarah's expression grew serious. "You're thinking about it wrong. Fenris isn't just a predator, he's family. His loyalty isn't bought or programmed. It's earned through trust, cooperation, and mutual benefit. His ancestors chose to stand with ours when the world was young and dangerous." As if responding to some unseen signal, Fenris rose and moved to Sarah's side. The two began walking down the corridor, the delegation scrambling to keep up while maintaining what they hoped was a safe distance. "Your species," Zekthar ventured, "you are predators as well?" "Omnivores, technically. But yes, we hunted to survive. Still do in many ways." Sarah's hand rested naturally on Fenris's head as they walked. "But we learned something your databases probably don't account for. Sometimes the strongest survive not by dominating others, but by making them stronger too." They entered the main conference chamber, where representatives from dozens of species waited. The moment Fenris crossed the threshold, a wave of primal fear swept through the room. Chairs scraped against the floor as beings instinctively sought higher ground or defensive positions. Fenris, for his part, seemed entirely unimpressed by the reaction. He settled beside Sarah's chair and began grooming his paw. "Perhaps," Dr. Yilan suggested with forced calm, "your companion could wait outside." Sarah's expression hardened. Fenris goes where I go. We're a team. The words carried an undertone that every species in the room understood. Challenge this bond, and you challenge us both. Admiral Corex of the military caste leaned forward. Captain Chen, our records show that species achieving spaceflight typically transcend their predatory instincts. They evolve beyond the need for primitive partnerships. Sarah studied the Admiral for a long moment. Then she smiled. Not the friendly expression from before, but something that made Corex's scales ripple with unease. Admiral, let me tell you about primitive partnerships. Her voice carried the quiet confidence of someone who had faced the void between stars and emerged victorious. When our colony ship Endeavor was attacked by raiders near the Epsilon Eridani system, do you know what saved 300 human lives? She gestured to Fenris, who looked up at the sound of his name. Not our weapons or our shields. Fenris detected the raiders' approach 6 hours before our sensors did. His pack instincts, evolved over millions of years, recognized predatory behavior patterns that our computers missed. He warned us and we were ready. The room fell silent except for the soft whisper of various species' breathing apparatus. You see evolution as transcendence, leaving behind what made you strong. We see it as integration, taking our strengths with us to the stars. Sarah reached down and Fenris nuzzled her hand. Every human ship carries companions like Fenris. We didn't conquer our instincts. We partnered with them. Commander Voss stood abruptly. This is madness. A species that refuses to evolve beyond its predatory nature. His words were cut off by a sound that froze every being in the chamber. Fenris had lifted his head and released a long, haunting howl, a sound that spoke of hunt and pack and wild places under alien stars. It echoed through the station's corridors, and somewhere in the distance other voices answered. More dogs on more human ships. The howl faded, but its impact remained. In that primitive, beautiful sound, the galaxy's civilized species heard something they had forgotten in their rush toward technological transcendence. The call of home, of loyalty that couldn't be programmed, of bonds forged in the crucible of survival. Zekthar looked around the chamber at faces gone pale, at beings suddenly questioning everything they thought they knew about evolution and civilization. Captain Chen, he said quietly, how many ships does Earth have? Sarah smiled, and this time the expression held the confidence of a species that had learned to run with wolves. Enough, she said simply. And they're all coming. As if summoned by her words, Fenris lifted his head again. This time his howl was joined by a chorus from across the docking bay. Dozens of voices, human and canine, harmonizing in a song older than civilization itself. The galaxy had indeed changed forever, and for the first time in their long, peaceful existence, the assembled species wondered if they were prepared for what was coming.